Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name's Evan. Today I'm joined with Nick and Weave. Sadly, no Joel today. He couldn't make it, but we're going to be doing our yearly tradition, as it now is, of giving our March Madness predictions. March Madness starts Thursday, so we're getting them out right now. So before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you are ready for March, and to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at lunchtable.takes. And without further ado, we'll dive right in. We're going to go region by region. We are going to do the East region first. So who would like to start us off?
I'll start.
All right.
I'll kick us off with a bang. All right, so
before you start, he's going all the way through who he thinks is going to go to the Final Four, right?
Yeah, do the first.
Oh, you want me to do the
all
East region all the way down to the Final Four?
Yeah, all the way to the Final Four.
Do I need to explain each pick as I go, or can I just say this is who I've got winning?
If you have a reason, explain it.
If you have a reason, explain.
All right, well, I don't have a lot of reason because I don't watch until March Madness, so we'll just kick it off from here. So the first game listed in this order here is the one-seeded UConn versus 16 Stetson. I don't think this one needs too much talking because UConn has only lost 2 or 3 games this year.
Yeah, 3 games.
They've been ridiculously good this year. They're the favorites to repeat. So obviously I've got UConn winning this one. And then now we have 8 FAU versus 9 Northwestern. I think this will be a solid game, but I went with a vibe pick, which most of these are going to be. Because really, who knows? It's March Madness. Anybody can win. I've got FAU here, coming off of a Final Four run last season. That was last season, right?
Yeah, it was last year.
Okay. So, and then I got San Diego State versus UAB Blazers. I'm taking San Diego State with this one. Auburn and Yale. Auburn just won the SEC. I'm not really sure how that happened with Tennessee getting knocked out by Mississippi State, but it is what it is. Auburn has a pretty good year this year. They're the 4th seed, so I'm going to take them over the Ivy League Yale. We got BYU and Duquesne. All right.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
All right. Good thing you cleared that up for me. Yeah. Obviously, I have BYU here because I can't even pronounce the other school. So, and then here, so you always have to have a couple of upsets throughout. And this, I don't know if this is going to be a massive upset or not, but I've got Morehead State over Illinois, and this is for the sole reason of the name of the university.
I knew Weaver was going to have that. I penciled that one in pretty early.
There we go.
Don't dive into why you like the name.
Yeah, I won't dive in further, but I've got Illinois falling in the first round here to the Morehead State. I don't even know what their mascot is, but we'll go with that.
It's like the Eagles.
It's like the Eagles or something. Yeah.
It's some sort of a bird. I can tell you that. So, all right. So then we've got Washington State at Drake. I have selected Drake to win this game. And then we've got, concluding the East, you got Iowa State and South Dakota State. I took Iowa State here. They're having a pretty solid run of a season here. They've only lost 7 games. They're averaging 75 points a game. They're only giving up 61 points a game. So
the defense is really good.
Yeah, that's and they're also 6-5 versus top 25. So I like where Iowa State's sitting. I've got them over San Diego State in the first round here. So then taking it back up to the top, still in the East here, we've got UConn versus FAU. This will be a better game, but I have UConn once again. And then we've got San Diego State versus Auburn. I kind of like Auburn right now, just coming off of an SEC win. I think they're rolling. They're hot. Got to keep it rolling. So Auburn's over San Diego State here. And then, once again, we have come back to BYU versus Morehead State, and Morehead State is my team that I have this year, so they're going to defeat BYU.
Morehead State's good.
I know,
They're a sneaky team.
They're my sneaky team this year, so they will defeat BYU. And then we've got Iowa State and Drake. I just talked about how I kind of like Iowa State right now, so I've got them over Drake. So rolling into the Sweet 16 here in the East, got UConn and Auburn. And this was a tough game for me to pick. I kind of went back and forth. I selected both of them. And as I said, I went back and forth multiple times for this one. Because I'm not a huge fan of just taking the 1 seeds because I don't think that happens often. But I do think that UConn is really, really good. I mean, they're only giving up 64 points a game. But I do think this could be a very good game. Auburn is averaging 83, which is more than UConn. And they're only giving up 68 a game. So, I mean, really, this is a pretty good game. I took UConn, but this was a tough one. I went back and forth multiple times because I honestly like both of these teams. I think either one could win this game, but I took UConn.
Are you in your round of 32 or Sweet 16?
This is Sweet 16
I'm in the Sweet
now.
16 now.
Okay, gotcha.
So now we've got wow. Okay, I did this last night and I forgot that I did this, but this is hilarious. So I'm gonna roll with it. We got Morehead State versus Iowa State, and as you can assume, I have Morehead State winning this basketball game.
He's riding the Morehead State hype train.
I thought I had them losing in this one, but apparently I have them winning. So I'm gonna ride that. And so now the Eastern, to conclude the East here, we're down in the Elite Eight. The Eastern Final, we got the Elite Eight, and I have UConn versus Morehead State. And this is where the ride ends. I'm pretty sure Morehead State probably won't go this far anyways, but I've got UConn winning this game. So
that would have been a generational upset if you had Morehead State beating UConn to get into the Final Four.
I should have did that just for the sake of the podcast.
The scenes, if that were to happen in real life, would be like...
That would be wild.
That would be insane. I kind of wish I did that now just for the podcast, but yeah, so I've got UConn rounding out the East here. Real good games, though. I mean, I think UConn and Auburn, like I said, that's a tough one. I kept going back and forth on that one. I think that the way my bracket played out, I think that if UConn is going to get beat out before they go to the Final Four, I think that it would be this game. So I think that they would get knocked out in the Sweet 16 here. I think Auburn would be the one to do it, at least the way my bracket shaped up. But yeah, so I've got UConn and Morehead State in the Elite Eight, and UConn coming out of that one.
There you go.
Yep.
Nick, you want to go or me?
Yeah, I can go. I can go next.
All right.
So yeah, UConn Stetson, first game, East Region. No need to explain it. UConn's gonna beat the brakes off them. 8-9 Florida Atlantic versus Northwestern. I also have Florida Atlantic winning. They were as up and down as they've been this year. They're still returning like almost all of their star players from their Final Four run last year. They've got the experience, and Northwestern's been kind of just like a mid-team in the Big Ten for a lot of this year. So I'm going to go with Florida Atlantic here. San Diego State, UAB. For some reason, all the 12 seeds this year are good, apart from UAB. I don't really like UAB. I think they're not that great of a team. So I went with San Diego State in this game. Auburn versus Yale. Auburn, one of the most impressive teams in the country last week, obviously winning the SEC tournament pretty convincingly. one of the deepest teams in the country. Johnny Broome just got named an All-American. I'm taking Auburn in that game. BYU Duquesne 6-11. I've seen this Duquesne team in person a couple times. I don't think they're very good. I think even for winning the A-10 tournament, 11 is a really high seed for them. And BYU was good in the Big 12, so I'm going to take BYU in this game. Illinois versus Morehead State. I'm taking Illinois in this game. Shocking, I know. I'm riding with Terrence Shannon in the Illini. I will say if Morehead State does win, Riley Minix is going to have a huge game. He's one of the more underrated players in the country. He averages like 22 and 11 with like 2 assists a game for Morehead State. He's really good, but Illinois is going to win this game. Washington State Drake. This is one of my games of the first round. It's a shame that Washington State drew Drake because Drake's really good. Like they really impressed me in the Missouri Valley. Tucker DeVries is an animal. I have Drake winning this game. And then Iowa State, South Dakota State. I think South Dakota State is good for a 15 seed, but Iowa State's been a buzzsaw. I don't see them losing to South Dakota State. So, round of 32, I also have UConn FAU. I also have UConn winning. They're just a buzzsaw. They're just a much better team. San Diego State Auburn. I don't think the San Diego State team is as good as it was last year. I think Auburn has way more depth. I think they're one of the top 10 teams in the country right now. I think they'll beat San Diego State pretty handily. BYU Illinois. This is my first upset of this region. I think Illinois is kind of a streaky team. I think they've been kind of hot and cold all year, and BYU plays pretty fast. They shoot a lot of threes. BYU is I think they're the number one team in the country in terms of 3-pointers attempted this year. No one shoots more from the 3-point line than BYU does, and when they're hot, they're hot. So I've got BYU. I think Illinois has a little bit of a lull in this game. I think BYU advances over them, and then Drake versus Iowa State. I think the Drake run ends slightly prematurely here. I've got Iowa State. I think their defense will clamp down Tucker DeVries. UConn Auburn. This game, like Weaver alluded to, is a really, really good game. This game's really good. Auburn absolutely has the depth to take it to UConn for all 40 minutes of this game. The tiebreaker for me, though, was this game is going to be played in Boston. It's basically a home game for the Huskies. And I've got UConn winning that game. In a close one. Very good game. Very exciting game. But I think that UConn will get it done. And then BYU, Iowa State, these two teams played twice in the Big 12 earlier this year. I think Iowa State is on another level in terms of Big 12 play. Last time they played, Iowa State won in Ames. I think Iowa State's defense will shut down BYU from the 3-point line, and they'll advance over BYU. And then my East Regional final is UConn versus Iowa State. I'm going to take UConn as well. Again, being played in Boston, Tristan Newton, Donovan Clingan, best team in the country for a reason. Most consistent team in the country. They waltz through the Big East. I think Iowa State will have a good run, but it ends here. I've got UConn advancing out of the East region.
There you go.
All right. For my East region, start off UConn Stetson, easy. UConn by a lot. Then we got 8-9 FAU Northwestern. I think this is going to be a pretty good game because FAU, like Nick said, have been up and down all year, and a lot of people think that they were seeded too highly, which I would agree with. But I do think, like Nick said, they have tournament experience. They returned almost all of their starters from that tournament team a year ago that went to the Final Four, and I think they'll do just enough to get past Northwestern. But I think it's going to be a pretty competitive game. And then I got 5-12 San Diego State UAB. I think, like Nick said as well, I like a lot of these 12 seeds, but UAB is not one of them. And I think San Diego State takes that one fairly easily. Auburn, Yale. I love Auburn this year, led by Johnny Broome, is averaging 16 a game. They've been hot recently, winning the SEC championship. And the SEC this year has been one of the best conferences in all of college basketball, and they're hot right now. And they're also, they're just a phenomenal team all around. They're 10th in adjusted offense, 4th in adjusted defense. I think that's going to make it fairly easily for them to get past Yale. And then 6-11, BYU Duquesne. I have BYU. They're a great shooting team, and great shooting teams usually do well in the tournament. So I think they're just going to shoot their way out of over Duquesne. Duquesne, they're a solid team, but not anything to write home about. Then Illinois Morehead State. I think this game is going to be a really good game. A lot of people are going to pencil in Morehead State as an upset, and I wouldn't be totally shocked if that happened because Riley Minix is a great scorer. But I think the Fighting Illini are hot right now. Again, coming off the Big Ten championship game, Terrence Shannon, who's been their best player, has been on fire these last couple games. I think he's had like 10 or 12 consecutive games where he scores at least 10 points a game. He had 48, I think, in the semifinal. It was a big reason why they ended up making it and winning the Big Ten championship. So I'm going to have Illinois going over Morehead State, but I think that's going to be a fairly close game. Then we got Washington State and Drake. And I think a lot of people hyped up Drake last year for basically the same reasons we like him this year, but they ran into a buzzsaw Miami team that ended up making it to the Final Four. But luckily for them, Washington State is not that team, and I love Tucker DeVries. I think he's going to be one of the stars of March Madness. He's averaging 22 points a game, and I think Drake's going to pull off the 7-10 upset here. Because I love their shooting, and when you have a guy like Tucker DeVries who when he's hot, he cannot be stopped, I think that's going to be a recipe for success for them. And then we got Iowa State and South Dakota State. Now, before I say who I have here, I just want to preface. In the last 3 tournaments, a 15 seed or 16 seed has made it to the second game of the tournament. And so, not to say that it's going to happen again, but I feel like if it could happen, South Dakota State is the more likely team to do it than any of the other 15 seeds. They play a very fast-paced style of offense, led by Zeke Mayo, who's a 19-point-per-game scorer, and they can really put the ball in the basket. But unfortunately for them, Iowa State has been one of the hottest teams in the country and is one of the best defensive teams in the country as they stand with the best adjusted defensive rating, only allowing 87 with a rating of 87. So unfortunately for the Jackrabbits, they ran into a team that kind of takes away what they do very well. But I still think there is a small chance that we could see South Dakota State pull through here. But I think it's going to be a good game, but I'm going to have Iowa State taking this one. All right, so to my round of 32, I got UConn, FAU. I got UConn winning again. FAU, they can match up with UConn's size, but UConn is just the overall better team. They've been dominant this entire year, only 3 losses, led by Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, and Riley Klingman, or Donovan
Klingman, yeah.
And so they've just been a bust. They've just been a bust all year, and they're a very well coached team, and I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. And I don't think FAU is going to be the one to do that. Now we got 5-4 Auburn, San Diego State. I'm going to have Auburn winning this one. Like I said, I really love this Auburn team. Coming off of an SEC tournament high, I think they're one of the more balanced teams in this tournament, rating top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. So I'm going to have them moving on here as well. And then, like Nick had, we have BYU, Illinois, and I had BYU winning this one because Illinois' biggest the biggest thing that goes against Illinois is they can't defend the 3 very well. they can score the basket with some of the best of them, but they can't defend the three very well, and that's what BYU does best, is shoot the three. So I think BYU is just going to outshoot Illinois, and I think it's going to be tough for Terrence Shannon to kind of put this team on his back consistently. So I'm going to have them losing there to BYU. Then we got Drake, Iowa State. This is another game that I think is going to be really good, for basically the same reasons why I thought that the South Dakota State game could be close. Is Drake's offense is very high-powered, very fast. They shoot a lot of threes. Tucker DeVries, like I just mentioned, is a phenomenal player. But I think Iowa State's defense is too good, and they've already been battle-tested by going through the Big 12, which is one of the best conferences in the country. So I think they're going to beat Drake, but I think it's going to be a pretty good game. Now, this is where it gets tough. Sweet 16, we got UConn and Auburn, two teams that I love. And at first I picked UConn without any question. But the more I look at it, the more I think that Auburn could knock them off. Like I said, Auburn is one of the best defensive teams. They're the fourth best defensive team, but UConn's the best offensive team. And then Auburn's the 10th in offensive efficiency, and then UConn's 11th in defensive efficiency. So they're both very close and very similar. And I think this is going to be UConn's toughest game until they get to the Elite Eight. And I think it's going to be a battle, but I think UConn is battle tested, and I find it hard to not have them going far, just because I feel like they're just head over heels the best team in this tournament. So for that reason, I'm going to have them beating Auburn, but I think it's going to be a heck of a game, and I would not be surprised if Auburn pulls off a massive upset and beats UConn and move on to the Elite Eight. But for my bracket, I'm going to have UConn winning. All right, now I got BYU, Iowa State. Iowa State can take away what BYU does best, and that's shooting. So I have them moving on to play UConn in the Elite Eight, and then I have UConn winning. Two tough games for UConn, Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, which will get them prepped for the Final Four. But yeah, I think UConn's just a buzzsaw. And they did draw one of the hardest draws out of a one seed, but I think they're just that good of a team that they're going to be able to kind of just move through, and yeah, I got them going to the Final Four. So,
all right. So me and Evan have the exact same bracket. That's great.
Yeah,
I think all three of us have the same.
Yeah, we all have UConn. I mean, that's not like a hot take, I don't think, at all.
No. I genuinely think that Auburn could, I think if any team's going to knock off UConn
in this region, it's going to be Auburn.
I think it's Auburn.
All right. So heading to the West now.
Should we have Evan do the West first, since he did the East last, and then just go in an opposite order?
Sure.
All right. There you go.
All right. The West. The West is where it gets fun. So we got North Carolina versus Howard or Wagner, who's playing right now. But it doesn't matter who wins that game because North Carolina is going to beat them. And then we have Mississippi State, Michigan State, which I think this game is a tough one to pick. Overall seeds, Mississippi State's 33, Michigan State's 34. So both teams are fairly even, but a lot of people were surprised that Michigan State was here in the first place. And I love Mississippi State. I watched them play a decent amount because I watched a lot of SEC games because I'm a Kentucky fan. And when they played Kentucky, they played them very well. Josh Hubbard was automatic. He's averaging 17 points a game, but the only reason Kentucky ended up winning that game was Reed Sheppard hit a game-winning shot at the buzzer. But if he didn't, it could have gone a different way. So Mississippi State is a very good team. And Michigan State's been very inconsistent this whole year. They were preseason top 5. First game of the season, lose to JMU. And then it's kind of been downhill since then. I mean, they're 19-14, which is not where they wanted to be coming into the season because, you returned your best player, Tyson Walker, who's a Wooden Award finalist, and he's averaging 18 points a game. And you got Malik Hall, who's a senior, who's been there for a while. AJ Hogarth's been there. And then you had one of their best recruiting classes with Xavier Booker, and Cohen Carr. But they really just they just didn't really put it together like people thought they were going to. And it is tough to pick against Izzo in March because he's just such a great head coach and his teams always do so well. But I think this is one of his worst Michigan State teams that he's had in recent memory. And I've gone 50-50 on this so many times, but I'm going to give the edge to Mississippi State just because I just like their offense a little bit better than Michigan State. Michigan State's defense is very good, though. They're top 10 in defensive efficiency, but I think Spartans are going to go home early. We got St. Mary's and GCU. I think GCU is going to pull off the 5-12 upset. I watched their championship game against
UT Arlington.
Yeah, UT Arlington. And I mean, if you've seen any Grand Canyon games, the guy that comes to mind immediately is Tyon Grant Foster. He's a NBA prospect. He's really good. I mean, he's averaging 20 points a game. He was the WCC Player of the Year. He's phenomenal, and I think he's going to carry GCU past St. Mary's. St. Mary's ended the season pretty well. I think they were on a pretty large winning streak until they lost fairly early in their tournament, right?
St. Mary's?
Or did they win it?
No, they beat Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Final.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. We were at your house watching it.
Oh, yeah. I guess I forgot about that. But I still don't know if I trust him. I like Aiden Mahaney, but I think GCU is they're very well coached. They play a very fast style, and I think they're going to pull off the 5-12 upset. Then we got 4-13 Alabama Charleston. A lot of people are picking Charleston in this game, but I'm going to go with Alabama. Alabama has the top scorer in the SEC in Marcus Sears, who is averaging, averaging 21 a game. And they're a tremendous three-point shooting team, but their biggest knock is they're awful defensively. They're one of the worst defensive teams probably in this bracket. But I think their shooting is going to outmatch Charleston. I think it's going to be a close game, but they're just very efficient from the three, and I think that's going to push them past there. Then we got Clemson, New Mexico. This one should be a good one. I'm going to go New Mexico. Jalen House and Jamal Mashburn have been really good, kind of leading that two-guard tandem that they have there. They just won the Mountain West, right?
Yeah, they ran the table in the conference tournament. If they didn't win that, they wouldn't be in, which is crazy.
No, I know. But they have one of the best offenses in college basketball. They're among the top teams in points per game. They don't turn the ball over, and they force turnovers, which is always a recipe for success. And I think they have what it takes to make a deep tournament run, and I have them beating Clemson here. We got Baylor or Colgate. Baylor's been up and down this year, but I'm going to have them over Colgate. Jacoby Walters, an NBA prospect, he's been really good this year. They have some key wins against Kansas, Iowa State, BYU, but then they've also lost to those teams as well. But I think Colgate, they're a fine team. Braden Smith is their best player. He's pretty good, but I don't think they're going to have enough firepower to get through Baylor. Then we got UD in Nevada. I'm interested to see what your guys' thoughts are on this one, but I'm going to go with UD. I know they've kind of been inconsistent at times, but they've been top 25 for the majority of the season. And they didn't end up winning the A-10, but I think Deron Holmes is an All-American player. He's a Wooden Award finalist. He's one of the best players in college basketball this year. And Dayton really shoots the three ball well. That's their biggest thing is they shoot the three ball really well with
Kobe Brea,
and Nate Santos. So Nevada's going to give them. It's going to be a good game. Nevada's always a tough team to take out in the tournament, but I'm going to have the UD. Moving on, Then we got Arizona, Long Beach State. Long Beach State fired their coach, but then he ended up coaching the tournament, and they ended up winning their tournament. But they're going to go home early because Arizona is just too good with Caleb Love leading the charge there. There's really not much to say there. All right, now we got North Carolina and Mississippi State. This one's kind of a tough one because I think Mississippi State is really good, but I'm going to have to give the edge here to the Tar Heels, mainly because they have some of the most experience in this tournament. You got R.J. Davis, Armando Bacot, who were on that national championship team. They didn't end up winning it, but they went to it a couple years back. And then you got guys like Elliot Cadeau and Cormac Ryan, who's a great shooter as well. And so I think they're just going to be too much for Mississippi State, and mainly because of that defense. They're sixth in defense efficiency, and I think that's just going to be too much for Mississippi State. Then we got Grand Canyon and Alabama. It's going to be another high-scoring game. But I'm going to give the edge to Alabama. They're more battle-tested going through the SEC. But this is another one that they could be upset just because of how terrible that defense is. But I'm going to give the edge to Bama here. Then we got Baylor and New Mexico State. And so this is how I am with this is how Weave is with Morehead State. I have New Mexico State as one of my teams this year. I have them beating Baylor, moving on to the Sweet 16. Every year there's been one 10-seed or lower that's made the Sweet 16, and New Mexico State is one of those teams for me this year. Baylor's been inconsistent all year. They've been up and down, having some good wins against, like I said, Kansas, Iowa State, but then also they lost to Duke and Houston. And I just think they're an up and down team, and like I said, I really love this backcourt of New Mexico State, and they have the recipe that usually works for New Mexico.
Okay.
They have the recipe that is always usually good for Cinderella teams. Then we got Dayton, Arizona, the 2-7. I'm going to have Arizona winning this game. Arizona is another one of those teams where they're just really good all around. 8th in offensive efficiency, 12th in defensive efficiency. But they're led by Caleb Love, who's an 18-point per game scorer. He's amazing, and I think they're going to put a run to UD's season. So then I got North Carolina, Alabama. North Carolina's going to win this game. Alabama's hot shooting streak ends here because North Carolina's defense is just too good, and North Carolina's going to move on to the Elite Eight, and they're going to play one of their old teammates in Caleb Love, who's going to end the Cinderella run of New Mexico. And then we're going to have a matchup of the Tar Heels versus Caleb Love's old team. And Caleb Love's going to get some sweet, sweet revenge and beat North Carolina to move on to the Final Four that is being played in Phoenix, Arizona.
All right. This is my turn now. 116, North Carolina versus the winner that, Howard Wagner playing right now. It doesn't matter. North Carolina's going to win. Mississippi State, Michigan State. I also have Mississippi State advancing, pretty much for the exact same reason that you said, Evan. I just think Mississippi State – I'm shocked Michigan State's not playing in Dayton this next couple days, to be truthfully honest with you. I just think Mississippi State's a much better team. Like you said, it's hard picking against Tom Izzo in March, especially when he just beat a 2-seed in Marquette to go to the Sweet 16 last year, and people were kind of just underrating that team. But I just think Mississippi State's a much better team. And then St. Mary's, Grand Canyon. I love Grand Canyon as a 12 seed. Like I said, Ty Grant Foster, NBA prospect, really phenomenal player, best player in the WAC by far. But I think it's a bad matchup for GCU, to be honest. I think St. Mary's will slow the game down to a point where their offense will make enough plays. I got St. Mary's advancing over Grand Canyon. And then Alabama, Charleston. I think Alabama would have been a prime candidate to get upset in this first round if they drew literally any other 13 seed but Charleston. because Charleston plays a very similar style of play to Alabama. It's just that Alabama's better at everything that Charleston's good at. So I've got Bama advancing there. Clemson, New Mexico. I also have New Mexico advancing. I love their backcourt. Clemson. The only reason Clemson's even a 6 seed is because they had like the best out of conference schedule in the country this year, and they played decent for it. They were kind of up and down in the ACC. New Mexico's backcourt is really, really, really good. They're really hot. Just won the Mountain West, and a very competitive Mountain West. So I've got New Mexico advancing. Baylor versus Colgate. I've got Baylor advancing. This is like the worst Colgate team in the past like 4 or 5 years analytically. So I've got Baylor advancing there. And then, Dayton, Nevada, 7-10 game. Obviously, we're from the Dayton area. I've been to a lot of UD games this year. I want to see them advance, but I also feel like I have to be objective on here. This UD team over the past month and a half has been bad. Not bad, but they've been very inconsistent against a average A10, if that.
Did they lose 4 of their last 5?
No, it wasn't that bad. They lost to Duquesne in the quarterfinals of the A10. No excuse for that. They lost at George Mason. No excuse for that. They lost at VCU. No excuse for that. And then they lost to Richmond and Loyola Chicago. Like, they were dropping game after game they should have been dropping in the A10. And I think the Mountain West as a whole got kind of disrespected with these seedings. Like, truthfully, I thought Nevada and Dayton should be on the same seed line. I thought they were both going to be like 8 seeds. So I think Nevada got kind of underseeded. I also just think they're playing better than UD is right now. So I have Nevada beating UD. I'd love to see UD advance because I actually think if UD played Arizona in the second round, they had a pretty decent shot to actually win that game because of how fast they play and Deron Holmes being a force in the interior. But I don't have them advancing. And then Arizona, Long Beach State. I also think it's really funny that Long Beach State fired their head coach and then he coached them to win their conference tournament. And that's really funny to me. But like you said, their run's going to come to an end early. Arizona's going to beat them. This is where it gets fun. There's always one region in every tournament that goes a little bit off the rails in terms of not being chalk. I think the West region is the region. Starting off, UNC, Mississippi State. UNC 27-7 as a 1 seed. 7 losses for a 1 seed is a lot. That is a lot of losses for a 1 seed. They don't strike fear in me at all. And I think when Mississippi State's hot, they are more than capable of beating a team like North Carolina, who's been off and on, relatively speaking, for a 1 seed all year. I have Mississippi State advancing. I think their offensive firepower will come through on the day. And there's always a 1 seed that gets bounced early. I think North Carolina is that 1 seed. So I have Mississippi State advancing to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And then
I think if any 1 seed is the most vulnerable, I think it is UNC.
Yeah, for sure. They've just been inconsistent relatively. They've been by far the most inconsistent 1 seed in terms of who is actually there. And then St. Mary's, Bama, 5-4 matchup. I think St. Mary's is built perfectly to contend with this Bama team because, like you said earlier, Bama cannot defend. Like, it gets to a point where you stop waiting on the defense to come around and you just accept that this is who this team is. They cannot defend. They can score with anyone, but they cannot defend. And St. Mary's plays a style of play that they're going to crunch the game down, make as little possessions as possible. If they can get a few defensive stops and then come through on the offensive side of the ball, I think they will beat Bama. I think that they will take them out and advance to the round, the Sweet 16. Then New Mexico, Baylor. I also have New Mexico advancing to the Sweet 16. I love their backcourt. Their backcourt is phenomenal. Again, best Mountain West in a long time. I've got them. I've got them beating Baylor. Baylor's a little bit up and down. They play in the Big 12, so it's like that's kind of what you get when you play in the Big 12. You're going to lose to a few teams that you might not lose to otherwise. But I've got New Mexico beating Baylor. And I've got Nevada and Arizona. I've got Arizona winning this game. I just think they're a better team than Nevada, all things considered. And then I've got Mississippi State taking on St. Mary's. I think this is where the Mississippi State run ends. I don't think this is the old St. Mary's team, where it's like, yeah, they're in the West Coast, but Gonzaga is very clearly the premier team in the West Coast Conference. St. Mary's won the West Coast Conference tournament this year. They beat Gonzaga twice. I think they're clearly the best team in the West Coast Conference. I think their style of play on their backcourt is made for these types of events. I have St. Mary's advancing to the Elite Eight. And then New Mexico, Arizona, I also think this is where the New Mexico run ends here. I think Arizona with Caleb Love and company is a very good team, built for March. And then St. Mary's, Arizona in my Elite Eight. Last year, I had Arizona advancing to the national title game, and they lost to Princeton in the first round. And I looked like an idiot immediately. So this might be a mistake. Well, who knows? But I've got Arizona beating St. Mary's, advancing to the Final Four again with Caleb Love and company. And again, it'll be played in Phoenix. So once they get there, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, all roads lead to the same destination for me and Evan, I guess. I don't know. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
I've got Arizona in the Final Four as well, beating St. Mary's.
Yeah, I think that West region is definitely going to be the one that gets the most wild. That was one of the most difficult ones for me to pick. For sure.
All right. So starting off with my Western region, North Carolina. I've got them winning that first game. That's pretty simple. Mississippi State and Michigan State. I'm taking Mississippi State here. They slaughtered Tennessee in the SEC tournament. Not really sure why that happened, but it did. So I'm going to roll with Mississippi State here. GCU and St. Mary's. So Nick made a compelling argument for St. Mary's. However, I'm going to take GCU here because you got to pick some upsets. And GCU's looked pretty good this year.
GCU's really good. They're really good this year. It's not like last year where it's like, okay, cool story. This year they're 29-4. They're a really good team. Yeah,
they only lost 4 games. They're scoring about 80 a game. They're holding teams to 66 a game. That's pretty good. I like GCU this year. I got them over St. Mary's in the upset there. So Alabama and Charleston, I'm taking Alabama here. And then Clemson and New Mexico. It seems like both of you guys had very good arguments for this game. And I kind of looked into it a little bit deeper while you guys were giving your picks and stuff. And I'm also going to take
New Mexico.
New Mexico. I'm also going to take New Mexico here. They're averaging like 81 a game, and they're holding teams to 70. That's pretty dang good. So I like that. Baylor and Colgate. I'm taking Baylor in this one. And then UD and Nevada. Obviously, UD's having a good year this year. They're a local team, so I've got to roll with UD here in this one. And then Arizona and Long Beach State. Got Arizona taking this one. So moving on to the round of 32. North Carolina and Mississippi State. I think this is going to be a very good game. But I've got North Carolina taking this one. And then we've got GCU and Alabama. And this is kind of a tough one. I think this would be a solid game. But I'm taking Alabama just for the sake of the fact that they're an SEC school. So I don't know. I feel like they've probably played better competition throughout the course of the season, even though they might not look to be as good on paper. I'll take Alabama in this one. New Mexico and Baylor. This was another one of those tough ones that I looked into. Like Nick said, Baylor's in the Big 12. The Big 12 is a very good conference for basketball this year. This is going to be a good game. And I think both of these teams are pretty even. But I'll take the lower seed because I don't like having higher seeds all in the, So I got New Mexico here. And then Arizona and UD. Arizona is just definitely the better team there. So, Sweet 16 now. We got North Carolina and Alabama. I don't really know why Alabama's in my Sweet 16, so I'm taking North Carolina here. And then we've got New Mexico and Arizona. Arizona's having a great year, as both of you guys have talked about before. So I've got Arizona there. The Elite Eight, we've got North Carolina and Arizona, and I also do have Arizona in the Final Four.
All right, so we are not different from each other at all. That's awesome.
All three of us have somehow led to Arizona in the Final Four.
And UConn. UConn, Arizona on one half of the bracket. That's awesome.
Hey, but I had Morehead State going to the Sweet 16. So
No, you had them in the Elite Eight.
Oh, that's true. I did have him in the Elite Eight. Yeah. So there's your different there. Am I going to keep going here with the South? I'll take it for the South. So we got Houston. What?
Just
kidding.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got
Houston. Start the next one.
All right, that's fine. I don't care.
Houston and Longwood. This is another very funny name. However, I'm going to be taking Houston here because Houston is ridiculously good this season. Yeah, I've looked into this a little bit, and Houston's very good. So I'm going to be taking Houston in this one, even though they are facing the Longwood, whatever their mascot is.
The Lancers
You can
of
imagine.
Longwood.
I'll leave that up to your imagination.
That's what they are. They're the Longwood Lancers.
So the next game, we've got Nebraska and Texas A&M. I took Texas A&M here. Just another one of my vibe selections. So then we got
SEC guy.
Yeah, I am the SEC guy. I'm a big SEC guy right now. The SEC is just a really good conference. So next I have Wisconsin as the 5 seed versus JMU as the 12 seed. I think Wisconsin is going to take this game. Although JMU is pretty good this year. They've only lost 3 games. So they're having a really good season, but I'm going to another vibe pick. Duke and Vermont is the next one. That's a Duke one. I didn't think too much about that one. And then we got NC State and Texas Tech. I took Texas Tech in this one. Now, see, this next game here, this is an interesting competition here, Evan. We've got the 3-seeded Kentucky going up against the 14-seeded Oakland.
Personally, interest between some people.
Personally, I'm rooting for Oakland in this game. But I did take Kentucky to win because I, like Nick with the UD, chose to be a little more realistic. So, but we'll see what happens when both of these teams hit the hardwood in a couple of days here. So, next we've got Florida and whoever wins the game that's happening.
I think it's tomorrow.
Tonight.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
I think they play tomorrow. Boise State and Colorado.
I've got Florida winning this one. They just made an SEC championship run. They didn't win it, but they made a good run. So I got Florida in this one. Another SEC team for me here. And then I've got the 2nd seeded Marquette versus 15 Western Kentucky. I took Marquette. This one wasn't super difficult. I've actually got, I'll get there. So moving on to the round of 32. We got Houston versus Texas A&M. I'm rolling with Houston here. I'm putting a lot of faith in them this year. I think they're a really good team, so we'll see if they let me down or not. Then we've got 4 Duke and 5 Wisconsin. I took Duke in this one. Let's see here. Here we are. I got Texas Tech and Kentucky. I'm rolling with Kentucky once again here. So we'll see about that. And then Marquette and Florida. I think this is going to be a good game, but I took Marquette. So, and then I've got in the Sweet 16 now, I've got Houston and Duke. And I don't like this because it's the 1 seed, but I've got Houston beating Duke. I think Houston is just really nasty this year. And then this one, Kentucky and Marquette. Solid game. I took Marquette, Evan. And then Elite Eight, we're down to Houston and Marquette. And this is where I decided to have some fun. I took Marquette to defeat Houston. So I've got Marquette in the Final Four.
All right. I think I also had Marquette in the Final Four last year, and then they lost to Michigan State in the round 32, so that was really cool. Me, I go now.
Yep.
All right. So Houston, Longwood, not me. Nah, Houston's winning. Not much needs to be said. Nebraska, Texas A&M. I also have Texas A&M winning that game. I think it is like comparing who has the best wins versus who has the better losses. And I feel like if you're trying to argue that Nebraska has better losses, so they're going to win this game, it doesn't really work out for me. I have Texas A&M winning this game. They've got a plethora of good wins on the year. Also a plethora of questionable losses. So it's really going to come down to which Texas A&M team shows up on this day. But I've got Texas A&M beating Nebraska as well. Now, Wisconsin versus James Madison, 12-5 game. This JMU team reminds me a ton of the Loyola team that went to the Final Four in 2018. Because all they know how to do is win. They are 31-3 on the year. I think they lost to App State twice by a combined 5 points, and then they lost to Southern Miss or something, I don't know. But all they know how to do is win. Terrence Edwards is a beast. TJ Bickerstaff, Noah Friedel, all double-digit scores. Julian Wooden also basically a double-digit scorer. He averages 9.9 points a game. Three seniors and a junior in their starting five. They have a ton of experience. Wisconsin started the year off really good, and then they had a lull from mid to late February where they just lost 5 out of 6 games. And then they're starting to trend back up, and with making it to the Big Ten final, beating Purdue. But I just think this JMU team is a prime candidate. If you want to pick a Cinderella team, this JMU team might be it. I think they're really good. So I have JMU advancing over Wisconsin. And then Duke versus Vermont. I think Vermont could make it a game. I think that they're a decent team. They're the usual representative from the America East. But Duke is just more talented at every position, so I have Duke winning this game. Texas Tech versus NC State. I also have Texas Tech winning this game. Big 12, obviously, they're very deep. They play 6, 7 guys, 25 plus minutes a game. It's crazy. But I have Texas Tech advancing. And then Kentucky versus Oakland. I think if you wanted to pick a mammoth upset in the first round, this might actually be one that I'd be looking into. Because, Evan, you know this all too well. Kentucky is incredibly inconsistent. And their defense, like you said, is not that great. And Oakland has the capability to kind of crunch the game and play tougher defense. The problem is they don't defend the three very well, and Kentucky is the number 1 team in the country in 3-point field goal percentage. But they don't shoot a ton of them, which is why this game might be – they don't shoot it like a BYU in terms of just bombs away from 3-point land and hope they fall. But
they can.
Yeah, they can, and they probably should if they want to see the best results because they're an incredible 3-point shooting team. I do have Kentucky advancing over Oakland, though. And then Florida versus the winner of Boise State, Colorado. I have Florida advancing in this game. Really impressive in the SEC tournament. And then Marquette, Western Kentucky. I actually think, like you alluded to, Evan, 3 straight years, a 15 or a 16 seeded has made it to the round of 32, Sweet 16. I actually think if you were going to pick one of the teams to win, I think this is where I would go. Because Marquette likes to play at a slower pace. They're just more slow, methodical. And Western Kentucky is go, 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 go. They're the number 1 team in the nation in terms of adjusted tempo. But they have some turnover issues, obviously, but they are like a Ferrari. They just run. So I think that if you were going to try to pick like a mammoth whale of an upset, I think this is where I would go. I do have Marquette winning this game. The Tyler Kolek injury is slightly concerning, but it looks like he'll be back for the game, but we don't know if he's going to be at 100%. Yeah. And then Houston versus Texas A&M in my round 32. I think that this is a game where Houston could actually lose. Because A&M is very good at running teams off of Houston doesn't shoot a ton of threes, but they're very good at running teams out of where they need to go. Their guards are also really good. But I have Houston winning this game. I think they'll get it done. And then JMU versus Duke. Like I alluded to, this JMU team reminds me a lot of the Loyola team that went to the Final Four, where they just win. All they do is win. That's all they know how to do. And this Duke team, they have a lot of veteran experience. They're not a typical Duke team where it's like a bunch of freshmen, maybe one junior, one senior. They have a lot of experience on that team, but they've been very inconsistent. You just don't know what Duke team you're going to get on any given day. So I have James Madison beating Duke and advancing to the Sweet 16. I love this JMU team. And then I've got Texas Tech versus Kentucky. As inconsistent as Kentucky is, I don't think Texas Tech is going to have the offensive firepower to keep up with Kentucky for the full game. So I think Kentucky will advance over Texas Tech. And then Florida versus Marquette. I think that this will be kind of a crossroads for Marquette's season. Because the Tyler Kolek injury, we don't know if he's going to be at 100%. If they get through this game and they have an additional 4 or whatever it is amount of days off before they play the Sweet 16, I think that they could make a run to potentially the Final Four. But I don't know if Tyler Kolek is going to be 100%. Without Tyler Kolek, this Marquette team is decent to good, not great. And this Florida team, even not considering the SEC tournament, just in the latter half of SEC play, was really impressive. So I have Florida beating Marquette in the round of 32 and advancing to play Kentucky in the Sweet 16. And then my Sweet 16 consists of Houston versus James Madison. The difference between the Loyola team that went to the Final Four and this JMU team to me is Loyola never had to play a 1 seed. They beat Tennessee, and then they beat, I think it was like Nevada, and then they beat Kansas State. Nevada was a 7 seed. Kansas State was a 9 seed. So they didn't play a team as good as this Houston team is. And I think Houston will end the Duke's run. But again, love this JMU team. I could very easily see them making an Elite 8 run, just like Loyola did. I think they're really good. And then I have Kentucky versus Florida. And obviously these two teams played twice in the regular season, SEC rivals. I don't trust Kentucky. I don't trust their consistency at all. And with a team like Florida that is pretty similar to their offensive firepower, I think that on the day, obviously Florida's beaten Kentucky. I think Florida will do it again. I think Florida will take down Kentucky in the Sweet 16. And then my South Regional Final consists of Houston versus Florida. I think that obviously Houston got, when I was first filling out a bracket, I was like, nah, this Houston team got exposed against Iowa State in the Big 12 final pretty badly. But the more I look into it and the more I think about the experience that this Houston team has, I actually think that game against Iowa State might have been the best thing to happen to them in terms of like not peaking too early and staying grounded. And I think with the way I have this bracket playing out, I think Houston will end up coming out of this South region. Jamal Shedd and company, Kelvin Sampson, one of the best head coaches in college basketball, Jamal Shedd, All-American. This Houston team is loaded. Incredible defensively, very good guard play. And I don't think they face a real challenge based on how I have this bracket playing out. So I have Houston advancing to the Final Four out of the South region.
All right. All right. So for me, we got Houston versus Longwood. Easy, Houston. Then we got Nebraska, Texas A&M. And if there's one guy that you need to know and you need to be paying attention to in this tournament, it's, I might butcher his name, Keisi Tominaga. Did I say that right, Nick?
Something along those lines. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, though. He's a stud. That guy can shoot.
AKA Steph Curry 2.0, the Asian Steph Curry. I think he is going to be. There's always teams that win because one guy just has an absurd run. You think of Purdue with Kason Edwards, where he just kind of took over.
Davidson
Carson
with
Edwards.
Steph Curry, obviously.
Steph, yeah. And I think that Tominaga is going to be that player. I think he's going to kind of take over and be the reason why Nebraska gets past Texas A&M. Now, this Texas A&M team is good. They just beat Kentucky in the SEC tournament, and they ended up, I think they lost to Florida.
Texas A&M?
But
yeah, they lost.
Yeah,
they lost to Florida.
Yeah. So, but they're a good team. But I'm just going to ride the hot hand of Tominaga. I'm going to have him and the Cornhuskers moving on. Then we got 5-12, JMU, Wisconsin. This is going to be a great game. On Wisconsin's side, I love AJ Storr. Watched him a lot in the Big Ten tournament. He balled out, and he's been one of their most consistent players. He's another one of those guys where he scored 10 or more points in almost every game this year. But they got a bad draw with the Dukes of JMU, led by Terrence Edwards and TJ Bickerstaff. This team is very well coached. They shoot the three at a high level. They play great defense. They've only lost 3 games. They started their season off with a bang, beating Michigan State when Michigan State was supposed to be this really great team. So I'm going to ride with JMU. I like a lot of things that they do, and I agree with Nick on a lot of things that he said. So I'm going to have them beating Wisconsin. Then we got Duke, Vermont. I liked Vermont, but they got a horrible matchup against Duke. So I'm going to have Duke moving on there. Duke is a tough team to really evaluate because they're 7th in offensive efficiency, 26th in defensive efficiency, which is, when you think of historically teams that do well, they're in the top 21 of offensive efficiency, top 25 in defensive efficiency.
And Duke is right on that cusp.
Yeah, and Duke is legitimately on the cusp of that. But they've been kind of playing up and down recently. They lost the series to North Carolina. North Carolina beat them twice. And yeah, they've kind of just been an up and down team, but I think they're going to have enough to go against Vermont. Then we got Texas Tech and NC State, 6 versus 11. And I'm going to ride the DJ Horn train. He had a phenomenal ACC tournament. The NC State's one of the hottest teams in the country, winning 5 straight games to win the ACC tournament. And I'm going to ride that hot streak with DJ Horn and DJ Burns. And I'm going to have them moving on. DJ Burns was kind of the player of that ACC tournament. He is a massive human being, but he is a good player, and I think he's going to help push NC State and continue their hot streak over Texas Tech. Then we got Kentucky versus Oakland, me versus our friend Lucas. And I said before the seedings, I said to myself, Oakland is a team that could be an upset team. But unfortunately for them, they drew the Wildcats of Kentucky. So I'm not going to pick against my Cats first round. I can't do that. But there is some legitimate concerns for this Kentucky team. Obviously, they're led by Antonio Reeves, Rob Dillingham, and Reed Shepherd. Reeves is finished second in the SEC in scoring with 20. He's their most experienced player. He's a fifth-year senior. And then you got Rob Dillingham, who is one of the most explosive guards in college basketball right now. He's an NBA prospect, top 5, top 10 pick. He's averaging 15 a game off the bench. He's been one of the best freshmen in the country. And then you got Reed Shepherd, who just won the best freshman player in the country award. Is Reed Shepherd. He's been kind of the glue guy for them. He's had a lot of great games. He's I think he's the most efficient 3-point shooter, shooting 52% on over 4 attempts a game. He averages 2 or 3 steals a game. He's a real difference maker for that Kentucky team. And yes, their defense is a massive, massive, massive problem. They're the 5th best in offensive efficiency, but 108 in defense efficiency. So that's a huge red flag for them. But I think they're going to have enough, and I think Calipari is not going to let his Kentucky team lose in the first round like they did 2 years ago to St. Peter's. He can't let that happen, or he's going to be definitely on the hot seat. And I think this Kentucky team is just too talented and too deep from top to bottom to lose to Oakland. But I think Oakland's a heck of a team. Trey Townsend is a guy that can play at a very high level. He's their best player, averaging 17 points. And then you got Jack Golke coming off the bench, who's an absolute sharpshooter. I think he shot like over 200 threes this year, or 100 threes, or something. I think it's 100 threes this year. He's a sharpshooter, so they're going to have to guard up on him. But I just don't think Oakland's going to have enough to get through Kentucky. Then we got Florida versus the winner of Boise State and Colorado. I'm going to have Florida winning this one, basically for a lot of things that Nick said. Coming off a SEC championship appearance, I think they're hot right now. They played very well down the stretch. Walter Clayton's been their highest scorer, averaging 17 points a game. He's been really good for them. They did lose in that tournament their center, correct?
I think so, yeah.
I think, he came down with a injury for a while, but they should still have enough to beat Boise State, Colorado. But there is always one team from the first 4 that moves on to the round of 32, but I do not think that it's going to be Boise or Colorado. Then we got Marquette and Western Kentucky. Like Nick said, Western Kentucky is a sneaky team. They played a very fast-paced offense. And Tyler Kolek might not even play in this game. I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be healthy or not. I haven't heard any updates or anything. But he missed the entire Big East tournament. But he's expected to return at some point. But I'm not. There's a chance that Marquette thinks they're good enough to beat Western Kentucky without him. And I think they will be. I have Marquette winning that game. Marquette has been a tough one for me all year. Like Nick said, they lost very early on last year, but this team is still good. I mean, Tyler Kolek is a phenomenal player, one of the best point guards in the league. And then you got Cam Jones, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the other dude's name. They're forward. But Marquette's good, so I'm going to have them going there. To the round of 32. Now I got Houston and Nebraska. I'm going to have Houston ending Tominaga's run. This Houston team led by LJ Cryer and Jamal Sheed. Is it Shed? It's
Jamal
Shed,
Shed,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, Jamal Shed, sorry. I mean, they have some losses where you're like, is this team really that good? But when they're at their best, I mean, they have a recipe for a great tournament. And you got 2 great guards, and then that defense is unreal. They're second in defense efficiency, only behind Iowa State, and they are just a really great team. And I think they're gonna stop Tominaga and Nebraska. Now we got Duke and JMU. This one is a tough one for me because I like JMU a lot. Like Nick said, I do see a lot of similarities with them in that Loyola team. I mean, only in any sport to only lose 3 games is super impressive, no matter what conference you're playing in. And Duke, like I said, has been a roller coaster of a team. But one thing that that does well in March is experience and guard play. And I think JMU's not going to have enough power to overcome Philip Howsky, Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Kane, Jeremy Roach. I think Duke is going to be too much to handle. They're a great offensive team, like I said, top 10 offensive efficiency, right on the edge of that defense efficiency line you want to see. But I think this Duke team, I would not be shocked if they lost this game. But for my bracket, I'm going to have Duke beating the Dukes. and moving on to the Sweet 16. Then we got Kentucky, NC State. That's where NC State's run ends. Kentucky's just a better offensive team. I think they're just Kentucky's a weird team where their ceiling is a Final Four caliber team, but they also could be a team that you could see lose in that first weekend. So, in this, I'm hoping that it's the latter, and they are going to be a team that goes far. So I have been beating NC State here. Then we got Marquette in Florida. I'm going to have Marquette winning this one. Florida's great, but Marquette fits that mold, like I said, of top 25 in offensive and defensive efficiency, with 21 in offensive and 19 in defensive. So it's kind of towards the low end there, but they're still in that over that line. And I'm going to have Marquette moving on to the Elite Eight, or Sweet 16, excuse me. Then we got Houston and Duke. I think Houston's going to be too much for Duke. Duke's inefficiencies are going to show against a phenomenal defensive team in Houston. I'm going to have them beating there. And then we got Marquette and Duke, a battle of some of the best guards in the country.
You mean Kentucky, yeah?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, Kentucky and Marquette, battle of some of the best guards in the country. But I can't trust Shaka Smart in some of these big games, and so I'm gonna go with the Wildcats of Kentucky. I think John Calipari and his team. I've heard all the noise, and I think they're primed and ready to make a run. They can play defense if they want to, but we haven't seen. They're not like Alabama where they're just a team that cannot play defense. Kentucky has shown that they can play defense. They just don't play it very consistently, but they can do it. And so I think they're going to do it against Marquette. It's going to be a great game, very close game, but I think Kentucky's going to take the edge there.
Evan, you know what you have to do.
Yes. Now we got the Elite Eight, Houston and Kentucky. If there's one team that can slow down the Kentucky offense, it's the Houston Cougars. And so I'm going to have Houston beating Kentucky.
I was talking about picking Kentucky to beat Houston.
Yeah, I don't. I just feel like Houston is a terrible matchup for Kentucky.
It definitely is. That's a terrible matchup.
Like if there's, like I said, if there's any team that can beat Kentucky, like
when Kentucky's on, it's Houston.
Because they have the guard play to like outmatch them, and their defense is just phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, as much as it would be fun for me to have Kentucky in the Final Four, I would love to see that happen. But I think I have to look at this realistically, like we all said. Houston's just a more experienced, better team. They do a lot of the same things that Kentucky can do, but their defense is just a lot better. And plus, no, there has not been a Final Four team that has been that bad on defense. I think that teams that are that bad on defense don't usually make it out of the Sweet 16. So I think Kentucky's defense is going to catch up to them. They're going to fall to Houston. So I got Houston moving on to the Final Four. All right, Midwest. Nick, you can start this one.
I'll go first. This one, starting off with Purdue versus the winner of Montana State and Grambling. Grambling making their first appearance. As funny as it would be to see the winner of this game advance over Purdue, it's not going to happen. Purdue is gonna they're gonna beat the winner of this game.
That would destroy their program.
Yeah, that would be bad. That would be bad. I don't even want to. I hate Purdue, but I don't even want to think about what it would do to them. Utah State versus TCU. I think this is the most even game of the first round. This is quite literally a coin flip. But no, screw it. I'm gonna change it. I have 2 8 seeds and 1 9 seed. I had Utah State here. I'm changing it to TCU. 2 of each, because 8 9s are a coin flip, pretty much. So I've made an ad lib. I've changed it to TCU. And then Gonzaga versus McNeese State. another 12-5, and another 12-5 upset for me. I've got McNeese State beating Gonzaga. Will Wade, former LSU head coach. I think he was fired for like recruiting violations in 2022. So he's trying to get his coaching career back on track, and he takes a team that went 11-23 last year and hadn't made the tournament in 22 years, and has them go 30-3 and just breeze through the Southland. I'm blanking on his name. Give me a second. Who is there? Shahada Wells. That's who it is. Yeah. Remember that name.
He's like top scorer in the country.
Yeah, he is a beast. Shahada Wells is an animal. And I think that they have the firepower to keep up with Gonzaga. Gonzaga has been hailed as this like elite offense. The conference they play in is terrible. Outside of St. Mary's now, and because BYU's not there anymore. So I think it's kind of inflated. I have McNeese State advancing over Gonzaga. And then Kansas versus Samford. I have Kansas winning this game. I do think Hunter Dickinson is going to be back by this point. So
we did hear that Lance McCullers is not going to be back
hear
in the
that.
tournament.
And yeah, I think this game will be close. Samford, Achor is also like really good for Samford. And they play in the, I'm blanking on their conference right now. It's not the Southland. I can't remember their conference. I know it's the same conference that Furman came from. And when Furman got paired up,
it might be I think it is the Southland.
Is it the Southland? Then where's McNeese State from?
Maybe McNeese State is from the Southland.
I'm gonna look this up real quick. I'm not. Samford Bulldogs men's basketball. They play in the...
They're in the Southern.
Southern, that's who it is. Okay, yeah. SoCon.
Yeah, which is where
Furman was there last year, and I remember calling quite literally, as soon as Furman and Virginia got paired, I was like, all right, Furman's going to win that game. And then they ended up doing that. So I think it'd be really funny to do it again, but I'm not going to. I think Kansas is a better team. Then South Carolina versus Oregon. This game is another one of those 11-6 matchups that are tempting to take. I just think Oregon is kind of like mid at everything. They don't really stand out in one particular way. And I do think South Carolina are a little bit of a fraudulent team, but for the most part, when they come up against like average, they've won this year. So I have South Carolina taking this game. I know that Dana Holmgren has not like lost in the first round when he's made the NCAA tournament his entire career, which is crazy. But I think it ends here. I have South Carolina advancing over Oregon. And then Creighton versus Akron. I think this is another game where if you wanted to pick a mammoth upset, this is one where you would look at. But I have Creighton advancing in this game. I think Kalkbrenner and company, Shireman, whatnot, very, very, very loaded team. And then Texas versus the winner of Virginia and Colorado State. As much as I hate the way that Virginia plays basketball, it works come March. And there's always been a team that is in the first four that wins at least one game in the NCAA tournament since the first four has been in its inception since like 2011 or something. I don't know. Obviously, VCU and UCLA have made Final Four runs from the first four. I think Virginia will take out Texas in this game. I think they'll slow the game down to the point where Texas won't have enough trips on the offense side of the not football, in basketball. If this was football, Texas would beat the brakes off Virginia. But
yeah, that would not be a contest at all.
It's not football. It's basketball. So I have Virginia beating Texas in the round 64, advancing to take on Tennessee, who I think it'd be really funny if St. Peter's, obviously they made that Elite Eight run.
Just wait till you see mine.
Yeah. They made that Elite Eight run back in 2022, and I bought a St. Peter's shirt. I don't know if you know that I had that, but yeah, I bought a St. Peter's shirt.
I think I did know.
I probably wore it to a hoop session one time or something. They were like, "Why are you wearing a St. Peter's shirt?" And I was like, "Go Peacocks," or something along those lines.
You probably just wore it just to make me mad.
I think that's exactly the reason. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
I'm not gonna. We bought it. I was gonna buy it anyways, but then I was like, I could wear this to a hoop session to piss Evan off, and then I did that. So yeah, I've got one of those, and as funny as it would be to see them beat a 2 seed again, they're not.
Are you gonna wear it?
I can.
Tomorrow on Thursday. Thursday night.
I might do that.
I better see a picture of you in your St. Peter's shirt. You can't bail on them. You can't bail on them now.
That's true. That's true. They don't have Doug Eder and company though. They don't have the man with the staff.
I mean, you can still pick Tennessee.
Yeah,
But
I will be supporting St. Peter's in this game. Let's go Peacocks! But I think Dalton Connect and company are too much for the little school from New Jersey to handle this time around. So I have Tennessee advancing. Then round 32, Purdue versus TCU. Didn't matter who won this game between Utah State and TCU. I actually think Utah State could put up a little bit of a fight against Purdue, but they are not going to play them now. So Purdue's going to beat TCU and advance to the Sweet 16. And then I have McNeese State versus Kansas. I was really tempted to pick McNeese State, but I've got Mississippi State and New Mexico and James Madison all in the Sweet 16, and I don't think there's going to be that many double-digit seeds to make this point. So I've got Kansas beating them in this scenario. South Carolina versus Creighton. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but when South Carolina's played average to below average, they're good. And then they play any team with a pulse and get obliterated. And I think that it's going to be a similar story with Creighton here. I think South Carolina play Auburn and just got obliterated in the SEC? They lost by like 30 in the SEC tournament. Like, yeah.
They beat Kentucky early on in the year.
Yeah, they did do that, and that's been their only like decent win though.
Yeah.
So I have Creighton advancing over South Carolina, and then I've got Tennessee versus Virginia. I think this is where Virginia's run ends. Tennessee has too much offensive firepower to. I don't know what happened to me, but Tennessee's going to beat Virginia. Yeah, Dalton Connect is a beast. Tennessee's really good this year. They've been really good the past like 5-10 years. Not 10 years, maybe like 5 or so years. Tennessee's as a university, Tennessee's on the up and up in terms of their athletics department. And then my Sweet 16 consists of Purdue. It's chalk for this region. It's Purdue, Kansas. I've got Purdue beating Kansas. I don't think Hunter Dickinson, I think that loss to, I know I have a notification for it. What's his name? Kevin McCullough. Yeah, that's his name. I think that loss is going to be huge for them in terms of their backcourt. Zach Edey's a beast.
If they had him, that'd be a pretty good game.
It would be a pretty good game, but Hunter Dickinson can only do so much. The ring chasing is not going to work out for him. Purdue is going to beat them.
Good.
Yeah. A little bit of an anti-Hunter Dickinson.
Screw Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah. And then I have Creighton versus Tennessee. I think this is where the Volunteers' run ends.
Screw you, Showing Wise.
I love this Creighton team again. They're returning a lot of the guys. They went to the Elite Eight last year. A lot of people forget that. But you talk about teams that made a run last year. Creighton was this close to making a Final Four appearance, and they might have beaten FAU.
Did they lose to?
They lost to San Diego State.
FAU. Or San Diego State.
They were this close to making. They lost by like one basket or something. They were that close to being in the Final Four last year. They're returning Baylor Shireman, Kalkbrenner, a lot of guys. I think they will make another run to the Elite Eight, and that sets up a Purdue Creighton Midwest final. This is a tough choice for me because I do think that Creighton has the interior to match up with Zach Edey. Kalkbrenner's now going to be a 3-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. They've got the guys to shut down Zach Edey or at least limit his impact on the game. So this is going to come down to the guard play for Purdue. Last year, it's what ended up being their downfall against Fairleigh Dickinson, which is really funny to even say that happened. I cannot believe that happened. It's hilarious. But it ended up being their downfall. And they're a little older, a little wiser. I think Purdue as much as it'd be funny to see them lose early, they've got a little bit of baggage from recent tournament history. I think they got a really good draw this time around. I do think their guard play will come up in the clutch against Creighton. I have Purdue coming out of the Midwest region and advancing to the Final Four.
Wagner just beat Creighton by 3.
Wagner did not beat Creighton.
Sorry, not Creighton. Howard.
Okay.
Good Lord. I can't think today.
Yeah. Shout out to
One
the
of
Wagner Seahawks.
Wagner beat Howard by 3. If they beat Creighton, that would be absurd.
They would have to beat them in a national title game. Wagner,
Yeah.
Seahawks, national champions.
All right, Weave, you can go next.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my picks pretty quick here. Nick hit them pretty good, and I have to pee. So,
All right, fair enough.
very badly, actually. But anyways, though. So, I got number 1 versus 16 seed here. Yeah, like Nick said, everything. Purdue's having a great year this year, so I'm going Purdue here. This one is truly TCU versus Utah State. This is truly a flip of the coin. And when I flipped it, it landed on TCU. So I've got TCU here, the 9 seed.
I fully believe that you flipped a coin for that.
I didn't actually flip a coin. But,
You lie.
Yeah. So we got 5 Gonzaga versus 12 McNeese. I'm taking Gonzaga on this puppy. And then we've got the 4-seeded Kansas Jayhawks versus Samford. And I'm taking Kansas in this one. Then we got South Carolina versus Oregon. I'm going to be different from Nick. I've got Oregon in this game. Wait, no, did you have?
I had South
No, you had
Carolina,
South Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we've got Creighton versus Akron. This probably won't be a great. Yeah, the Zips are going to win, and it's not going to be a good game. No, Creighton's going to win. So then we've got Texas and probably Virginia. And I didn't take a play-in team in my other 3 regions, so I'm taking the play-in team here. I'm assuming it's going to be Virginia, so I'm going Virginia.
It could be Colorado
with this one.
State. You never know. It probably will be Colorado State now that you said that.
Yeah, either way, I'm still taking them to win this game just for kicks and giggles because I got to have a play-in team win at least one game. Got a kink in my neck. All right. So the last game here, we've got Tennessee versus St. Peter's. And as Nick said, there is no Doug Edert. There is no stunning mustached man on this team. So I will be taking Volunteers here. Yeah. So now let's get into the round of 32. We got Purdue versus TCU. I got Purdue in this one. Purdue's just nasty. They still have – what's that one guy's
Zach
name?
Edey.
Yes.
He's been in the
He's still
college
there.
basketball for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And
that
has
guy.
0 offensive bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. But they still have him coming back for year 30. So got Purdue.
Still going strong.
Yep. Now I've got Gonzaga versus Kansas, and I've got Gonzaga in this one, especially because Kansas just lost their superstar player for the tournament here. So we're going Gonzaga. And then Creighton and Oregon. I do agree with everything Nick said. Got Creighton over Oregon here. This is where Oregon's run ends in the round of 32. And then we've come down to the Volunteers versus Virginia. And I'm taking Tennessee here because go Vols, baby. All right. And now we've got Purdue versus Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, 1 versus 5. I had a bit of an upset in this one. I took Gonzaga over
All
Purdue.
right. That's what you like to see.
Gonzaga, yep.
We like to see Purdue
Yeah,
lose.
that's true. We do
Yeah.
like to see Purdue.
I would,
lose.
I would like to see this happen
funny.
the way I have it.
It's funny.
Yeah. So I've got an upset rolling strong here. And then in the Tennessee versus Creighton game, this will be a great game, but I can't pick against the Volunteers. So I've got Tennessee beating Creighton here and advancing to the Elite Eight. Now in the Elite Eight.
Wonder who's going to pick.
In the Elite Eight, I have the Zags versus the Vols. All right. So, yeah, I'm taking Tennessee here. I'm sure that you guys probably guessed that. We're bringing some glory to Rocky Top here, baby. Got Tennessee in the Final Four.
If they were playing Gonzaga, I would take
Yeah, if
Tennessee.
Gonzaga played Tennessee, I would take Tennessee as well, probably.
Go
All
Vols.
Let's look at my Midwest.
If you have Purdue winning, I'm going to kill myself. If you have Purdue winning this region.
Well, I guess
You should have
find
Tennessee
out.
winning the region.
Guess you have to find out. All right, we got Purdue versus whoever 16 seed, and it's going to happen again. No, just kidding. They're going to win. They're not going to let it happen again. Then we got Utah State, TCU. I'm going TCU as well because I need some more 9 seeds.
That's so real.
Well, historically, let me look at it.
9
9
seeds actually have
seeds
a winning record against
have
8
won
seeds.
have won 13 of 20 meetings with 8 seeds in the past 5 seasons. I only have 2 of them, so I might need some more. But
Get some
we're-
variety in your menu.
Yeah, it's all right. Then we got Gonzaga, McNeese, one of the most popular upsets, and I'm going to ride with that. I'm going to go McNeese. Like Nick said, I mean, Will Wade kind of overpowered as a coach for them because, I mean, he's an SEC guy, has a lot of tournament experience, and he goes to a team, I don't even know what conference they're
They're in
in,
the
but they just
Southland.
blew. Yeah, and they just absolutely blew through them like it was nothing. So yeah, and then I mean Shahada Wells is one of the best guards in the country. He's like Nick said, he's a name you're gonna remember after March Madness. And Gonzaga's been an up and down team all year. I mean they lost to Purdue, lost to UConn. They beat Kentucky, but I never really trust them because their conference is so bad. And I think this is one of the worst Gonzaga teams in the last couple of years. Because Gonzaga recently has been pretty good.
Definitely since like pre-COVID, I would say.
Yeah. So I'm going to go McNeese with the 12-5 upset, which is always fun. Do I have 3 12 seeds? I do. I feel like that's universal, but whatever. Then we got Kansas Samford. This is my favorite upset of the year. Samford is going to beat Kansas. I have this even before McCullers was said that he was going to be out. But Kansas is playing their worst basketball at the worst time. And they're not healthy. So I think a core for Samford, who's their leading scorer. I think he's going to do pretty well. And Kansas is they're not deep at all. They have no depth whatsoever. So you go with the team against Samford, who's been pretty good this year, has a lot of depth. They run 10-man out, and just they run the ball in the fast break a lot. They have a very up-tempo system. They make 10 3-pointers a game on average of 40% from the field. They force turnovers at a high rate, crash the offensive glass. They're a great rebounding team. It's another one of those teams that just has upset written all over it, going up against a banged-up Kansas team playing not their best basketball right now. So I'm going to have, in my round of 32,
McNeese
McNeese versus Samford.
What a matchup.
Yeah.
Nice.
12-13. Fun stuff. Then we're going to have another upset here with Oregon beating South Carolina because Dana Altman has not lost in the first round tournament, and I don't think it's going to change. Oregon is playing their best ball right now. They just beat Colorado and Arizona to win the Pac-12 championship. That's the reason why they're here. They're finally healthy. The reason that they weren't very good this year or weren't as good was because they weren't healthy. And they're led by Nafale Dante, who when healthy is one of the better big men in the league. Then they got Jermaine Couisnard, who's another one of their great guards. And they got a freshman. Let me find his name. a freshman in Jackson Shellstad, who I think could make a difference. He's averaging 13 points a game. So they got that kind of recipe of good guard play and a good big. And like Nick said, South Carolina has some good wins, led by Michi Johnson, but they're a very inconsistent team, and I think Dana Altman and the Oregon Ducks are going to upset them. Then we got Creighton versus Akron. I really like Creighton this year. You got Baylor Shireman, who's a tall guard, averaging 18 points a game, phenomenal shooter. Then you got his running mate, Trey Alexander, averaging 17 points a game. And then you got Cockburner as well in the middle. All guys who have tournament experience and have been there multiple times. So I'm going to have them beating the Akron Zips. Although Ali is a good player for Akron. He's pretty good. Then we got Texas versus presumably UVA. I'm also going to UVA. Mainly because I don't have a fourth team in there. So, and I feel better about that than I do than Florida. So, then we got Tennessee, St. Peter's. This is not the same St. Peter's team as old. They're much worse, much younger, and Tennessee is one of the best defensive teams in this tournament, and they're going to be too much with Dalton Knecht and those guys to warrant an upset. So I'm going to have them. Moving on. So, round of 32, we got Purdue, TCU. Like Nick said, none of these teams are going to be Purdue, and I'm not changing that. Zach Edey is, as much as people don't like him, he's a good college player. He's leading the nation in scoring with 24 points, got 12 rebounds. He blocks shots really well. And Purdue does have better guard play this year than they did last year when they were frauds and lost to FDU.
Still really funny that even happened, by the way. I'm never going to let them live that down.
Me neither. That came into consideration when picking them for this year as well. And then we got McNeese-Sanford, 12-13, the matchup everyone's looking forward to. And McNeese is just a better mid-major team. They got a better coach, better guard play. So, yeah, McNeese is going to win this game, but that's going to be a fun one. Two mid-major teams battling it out. Then we got Oregon and Creighton. And this is a tough one because Oregon, Dan Altman, they've been to 7 tournaments, and they have made the Sweet 16 in 5 out of those 7, and they've made the Sweet 16 in 4 straight. So odds are if Oregon's in there, you're pretty much a lock for the Sweet 16, except for this year when they're going up against a Creighton team that, like I said, very experienced, is a great shooting team. They're good on both sides of the ball inside. They play slow paced, which can kind of has teams. Some teams have trouble with that. And then, like Nick said, they were an Elite 8 team a year ago, and they were very close to being in the Final Four. And I think this team is better than last year's team. So I'm going to have Creighton beating Oregon. Then we got Tennessee, UVA, or Colorado State. It doesn't matter. Tennessee's going to kill them. Yeah. Dalton Knecht's probably going to have like 40, which is really good. So, yeah. So now I got Purdue versus McNeese. Now I'm going to have McNeese. No, I'm just kidding. Purdue is going to be too much for McNeese. Edey's probably going to have 30 and 20.
With like 8 blocks or something stupid.
Yeah, McNeese just has nobody to guard him. That's really the only thing. So, yeah, I got Purdue ending McNeese's Cinderella run, but heck of a run by Will Wade and those guys. What's their mascot? Mustang or something?
I have no idea. I'm usually good with I'm usually good with college mascots, and I have no idea what McNeese State is.
Let's take a look. It looks like it's Cowboys. I was close. Then we got Creighton and Tennessee. This is going to be a fun game. You got Creighton, who is top 12 in offensive efficiency, top 24 defensive efficiency. So they're in that and over that line of teams that you want to that have success usually in the tournament. And then you have Tennessee, who's 29 in adjusted offensive efficiency with 3 in defensive efficiency. But I'm going to go with the experience and the shooting ability of Creighton. I'm going to have them upsetting Tennessee. Kind of how they kind of follow the blueprint that Kentucky had, where they just played. Dalton Connect's going to get his, you know that, but you just have to play good defense around the other guys. And I think Trey Alexander and Baylor Shireman are going to do well enough, and I think Cockburner down there in the middle is, again, he's a great offensive and defensive big. Like Nick said, he won Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East. Hey, Ohio State beat Cornell. Let's go.
Hey.
Let's go, Bucks.
They won by 5.
Yikes.
But anyway, I really like this Creighton team, and I think they're going to get another shot at the Final Four. But this time, they're going to make it. They're going to beat the Boilermakers, and the Creighton Blue Jays are going to finally get over the hump and become a Final Four team. You're welcome.
I was about to say that there would have been no reason to do this if we just had the same Final Four.
I felt like we had the same problem last year, where majority of our brackets were relatively the same. But, all right.
Final Four time. Weaver, you go first because yours is pretty different.
First, list who you have in your Final Four, and then say who you have moving on to the championship.
All right. So now we're down to the Final Four. All right. I've got 1-seeded UConn versus the 2-seeded Arizona. And then I've got the 2-seeded Marquette versus the 2-seeded Tennessee Volunteers. So, start with the UConn-Arizona game. This was a really tough game for me to pick here. Both of these teams are just phenomenal basketball teams this year. But UConn's defense is really putting the clamps on folks this year, holding people to 64 points a game. That's pretty dang good, and they're only losing 3 games the whole season. So we've all talked about UConn. I've got UConn winning this game and advancing to the 2nd consecutive national championship. Now, Marquette and Tennessee. This was not as difficult for me to pick. I'm rolling with the Volunteers here. So I've got UConn and Tennessee in the national championship. And, the realistic thing kind of had to come into play for this one.
No!
No! I mean, no!
You know, earlier when you said, I've got a team, you're not thinking of it. I was thinking of Tennessee!
I know you were thinking of Tennessee, and I told you that's not who I had winning. Now, do I want Tennessee to win the whole thing? Absolutely I do. Do I want UConn to win? Absolutely not. Do I want to pick UConn to win? No, I do not. For a lot of reasons. And I feel like this is a casual pick, but that's fair. I don't watch a ton of college basketball until March Madness, at least. I watch every March Madness game. But, I've got UConn winning. I have it being a close game. I think I had it within 6 points. I mean, like I said, I want Tennessee, but I think that UConn is just by far and away the best team in college basketball this year, and I think that they're going to repeat it.
Evan, you can go.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I have my Final Four. I got UConn and Arizona, and then I have Houston and Creighton. So this Final Four is an interesting game between you got the number 1 seed Creighton and UConn, my bad, and then the number 2 seed
Arizona,
and this is a home game for Arizona playing in Glendale. So there's going to be a ton of Arizona fans there, but UConn is just a buzzsaw. I think they're by far the best team in college basketball right now. There's very little blemishes to their resume. And I think once you get through the gauntlet of FAU, Auburn, Iowa State, I think they're ready enough to go against teams like Arizona. So I'm going to have UConn beating Arizona, going to the national championship. And then I got, on the other side, I got Houston and Creighton. This is where Creighton's run ends. I love Houston's defense. I think they're a great defensive team, and like I said, they got good guard play. So this might be really boring, but I got UConn versus Houston. And yeah, 2 1 seeds, which is normal. Usually there's the 1 seeds. There's at least one seed. But there hasn't been a repeat champion, since 2008, right? Or seven with the Florida Gators. But that's going to happen again. I think UConn is just, like I said, just really good. And I think they're going to be the team to beat. And I don't think anyone is going to. So I'm going to have UConn winning the 2024 national championship. But it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be like 82-76. Like, pretty solid game. But that might be boring. But I felt myself wanting, like we've said, I felt myself wanting to root against Creighton. Not Creighton. Gosh, why do I keep saying Creighton? I found myself rooting against UConn, but I could never in good conscience put together an argument for them to lose. So I got UConn, which is boring.
That is exactly how I felt. I really wanted to pick Tennessee. I just didn't. I didn't think it made sense.
Yeah.
All right. My Final Four consists of the East winner, the UConn Huskies, versus the West winner, the Arizona Wildcats. I picked Arizona to go to the Final Four last year. I picked them to go to the national championship game last year. They let me down. This game will be in Phoenix, like you alluded to, Evan. Home game for Arizona. But UConn is just... I mean, you've said everything. You guys have said everything. We've said everything about UConn over the course of this entire pod. They're just far and away. They're far and away better than Arizona. So I don't think the home court advantage is really going to matter too much here. I also have UConn advancing to the national championship, and then I have the one-seeded Houston from the South region versus the one-seeded Purdue from the Midwest region. Last year I had no one seeds in my Final Four. This year I've got 3 of them. A little bit more chalky for me. But I think UConn, Houston, and Purdue have been very clearly the 3 best teams in college basketball this year. I think they'll be the 3 of the 4 Final Four teams. And this game's tough. This game's tough for me. The thing for me is I think Purdue's guards are... Obviously, they're not better than Houston's backcourt. And obviously, they might have trouble going up against Houston's defense. But they're a little older, a little wiser. They've got some tournament experience. And I just don't know who on Houston is going to guard Zach Edey. That's just what it comes down to. Zach Edey's going to get his. I think the Purdue backcourt will do enough. And I have Purdue beating Houston and advancing to the national championship game. I've got a UConn-Purdue national championship. And it's a story of narratives because, like you alluded to, Evan, there hasn't been a repeat college basketball champion since either 2007 or 2008. The last time they did it was Florida when they beat UCLA one year, they beat Ohio State the next. Also, the only other time a 16 beat a 1 with UMBC over Virginia, the next year, Virginia won the national title. And last year, obviously, Purdue lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, and now they're in the national title game against UConn. I will do it.
This will be a great game.
It will be a great game. I'm going to do it. I had UConn initially written, but I am not going to – this is not going to be a uniform UConn winning the national title. So for that reason alone, I am going to pick – as much as I hate to do this pains me to my very core.
You should not do
I am
it.
going to pick Purdue to topple the UConn Huskies and win the national title. I think they get rid of their tournament baggage in recent history. I think Zach Edey actually cements himself as a college legend, and I will have the Boilermakers winning it all in 2024.
This is what happens when you go last, Nick.
Yeah, this is what happens when you go last.
I don't like that, Nick. I don't even like my own pick though, so that's fire.
Yeah, I never feel confident about my brackets ever.
You fill
I
out a
always second
bracket,
guess
and
myself
it's like,
a
wow, this
billion
bracket
times.
sucks.
Yeah, like I fill out a bracket and I'm like, oh, I feel okay about this. Then I look and I have 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, and I'm like, it's not happening. Also,
Well,
I looked in the past. I think in every Final Four since 2012, there's been a seed that's 5 or lower.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
because 2012.
But I couldn't confidently. I couldn't find one that I was like, I feel very confident that this 5 to 8 seed is going to go on a run.
I think that
My only potential was Mississippi State, but I didn't feel confident about that.
Yeah.
If they just get hot,
you said
because
5
they
seed or
have the
lower.
easiest ones. Yeah, I think, and then the lowest Final Four seed was 11, so in the 5 to 11 range.
Yeah. I think
I couldn't find one that I confidently.
I think that I have St. Mary's in my Elite Eight, so they could very easily go to the Final Four. I think Nebraska or Texas A&M could make a Final Four run. Truthfully, I think Florida could. Florida's also in my Elite Eight.
You might have sold me on St. Mary's.
Yeah, I
might have to change some stuff up. If I'm wrong, I'm blaming you.
Bracket.
Yeah,
If I had it right and I move it, I'm blaming you.
that's what it is. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It's gonna look really funny when Purdue loses to Utah State in the second round, and then UConn gets bounced by Auburn in the Sweet 16. It's gonna be really funny to laugh at us.
Dude, I'm honestly this close from going back and changing that, in our brackets for the
I spent
fantasy.
a half hour trying to figure out what I should do there.
Dude, I am I'm this close from changing that now.
I know.
Because Auburn, I really think Auburn could win that game, and I don't even want UConn to win. That's just how it worked out.
I think
I'd rather Tennessee win.
I was agreed to.
UConn's toughest game by far would be Auburn if they play them. I think that Auburn is clearly the favorite to take them down in the East region if there is a team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just don't. I don't know. I might have to change it. I'm going to do some more debating. We have till Thursday, don't we?
Yeah.
And the league
So you got
of our
everything.
friends,
Good.
You got from Thursday to 12:15. Thursday on 12:15.
Okay, so I've got time then to decide if I want to change that or not. Because, dude, I'm close to changing that sucker.
I know. It's a tough one. Well, the madness is upon us.
Indeed.
March is here. The only reason March is a good month is because A, it's spring coming
And
in
B,
spring. But mainly
this is
March
the reason.
Madness, baby.
I
March
get to sit
Madness
down
is
on
the
Thursday and watch basketball every hour
Until you go to
for
sleep.
for the entire day. which
I'm
is
not going to
awesome.
class
I will
Thursday.
also not be going to class Thursday.
I don't have class on Thursday, so I will be at the Mississippi State Michigan State game.
That's going to be so fun. I wish I could go to that, dude.
And then I gotta watch Kentucky hopefully beat Oakland and talk some smack to Lucas.
That's a low bar.
Me and Lucas were talking, and you, Evan, you realize that if Oakland wins that game, you are going to hear endless crap from
He'll
the
never
both
let
of
you
us.
live it down.
No, which I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all.
You will never forget that from him.
Yeah, no, I know.
But it's all in good, friendly competition.
Yes. I'll probably just cry for a couple of days, like I did when they lost to St. Peter's. Then I'll be all right.
It is what it is. It happens to the
Hey, at
best
least
of
St.
us.
Peter's made it to the Elite
They
Eight.
did.
They
They
weren't
weren't frauds. It's not like a lightning in a bottle
Yeah.
situation. Like they were actually
But
all right.
didn't make it any more fun.
That is true. That is true. At least they weren't terrible and they just beat you still.
Well, that was our 2024 NCAA March Madness bracket predictions. Let us know what you think. Let us know if we had too many upsets, too little upsets. Let us know who you have in your Final Four and who you have winning it all. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. We'll see you guys in the next one. Lots of things to come. Nick's got a whole bunch of stuff up there.
I do have a whole bunch of stuff. I've been cooking
that we're
up
planning,
some
so
ideas for the next
He's
few
been
weeks.
cooking up some stuff. So, oh yeah, so it should be fun. So stay tuned.
Enjoy
for that.
the
We'll see you guys
madness,
next one.
everyone.
Yes, sir. Peace.